The Zen-3 ship hovered at the edge of Earth's orbit, its pearlescent hull gleaming under the distant sun. Inside, diplomatic officer Zevak paced nervously, all 6 of his slender limbs twitching with anxiety. Today would mark the first official meeting between the Galactic Confederation and the mysterious beings known as humans. Are all safety protocols in place? Zevak asked, his large, multifaceted eyes blinking rapidly. Security Chief Kalen nodded, her forearms simultaneously checking various monitoring devices. Yes, officer, though I must again express my concerns about allowing these Deathworlders onto our vessel. Zevak understood her fears. The reports about Earth were troubling, a savage planet of extreme temperatures, deadly weather patterns, and crushing gravity. How any species could evolve intelligence while fighting such constant threats was beyond comprehension. The Council's decision is final, Zevak said, his voice soft but firm. Humans have achieved faster than light travel. We must establish diplomatic relations. The ship's alert system chimed gently, indicating an approaching vessel. The bridge crew tensed visibly. They're early, whispered Kalen. That shouldn't be possible. Their engines weren't supposed to be that efficient. On the main screen, a small Earth shuttle grew larger. It was crude by Confederation standards, blocky and utilitarian with none of the elegant curves typical of advanced spacefaring civilizations. Yet it moved with surprising speed and precision. Incoming communication, announced the communications specialist. Accept, said Zevak, straightening his ceremonial robes. The screen flickered, revealing a face that sent shivers through every Zen-3 present. The human had small, forward-facing eyes, a classic predator trait, and exposed teeth that seemed designed for tearing flesh. This is Lieutenant Joe Miller of the Earth Diplomatic Corps, said the creature with a smile that made the aliens flinch. Requesting permission to dock. Zevak forced himself to respond calmly. Permission granted, Lieutenant Miller. We await your arrival. As the screen went dark, the ambassador turned to his nervous crew. Remember your training. Do not show fear. These humans have no idea how terrifying they are to us. The docking procedure went smoothly despite the crew's worries. Zevak led a small reception committee to the airlock, each member struggling to control their instinctive fight-or-flight responses. The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss, and there they stood, 3 humans much taller than expected, with alarming musculature clearly visible even beneath their formal uniforms. The aliens took an involuntary step backward. Ambassador Zevak, I presume? Said the female human at the center. I'm Ambassador Susan Clark. Thank you for hosting us. Zevak forced his trembling limbs to perform the traditional greeting gesture. Welcome aboard the Luminous Harmony. We are honored to receive Earth's representatives. The human stepped forward, and the Zen-3 escorts tensed. Everything about these creatures screamed danger to their evolutionary instincts. The way they moved with powerful efficiency, the intensity of their gaze, even the rhythmic sound of their breathing. This is Lieutenant Joe Miller, our military liaison, continued Ambassador Clark, gesturing to the male who had appeared on the screen, and our communications specialist, Linda Rodriguez. The third human smiled widely, causing several Zen-3 to back away further. We bring greetings from Earth. We're very excited for this cultural exchange. Callan watched the humans carefully, noting their heavy footfalls on the deck plating. Their planet's crushing gravity had made them devastatingly strong. She calculated that even the smallest human could probably tear a Zen-3 limb from limb without specialized equipment. Please follow me to the conference room, said Zevak. We have prepared refreshments suitable for human consumption. As they walked through the corridors, crew members stopped to stare at the visitors. Most had never seen a Deathworlder before, only images in briefing materials. Your ship is beautiful, said Linda, looking around with genuine appreciation. The bioluminescent lighting is amazing. Thank you, replied Zevak, surprised by the human's aesthetic sensibility. It is designed to mimic the natural light of our homeworld. I understand you come from a low-gravity environment, said Joe, noticing how delicately the aliens moved. We've been practicing moving more slowly to avoid startling anyone. Kalen's antenna twitched in surprise. The humans had realized they were frightening and were trying to be less intimidating. Perhaps they weren't mindless predators after all. The conference room was specially prepared with reinforced seating for the humans and environmental controls adjusted to Earth standard temperature, a setting that felt uncomfortably warm to the Zen-3. As they settled in, a low rumbling sound filled the room. The security team immediately went on alert, reaching for their weapons. "Oh, sorry about that," said Joe, looking embarrassed. "Guess I'm hungry. Those are just my stomach noises." The aliens stared in horror. The sound was coming from inside the human's body. "We have prepared nutrition cubes based on human dietary requirements," said Zevak quickly, gesturing to a server who brought forward a tray. The humans looked at the perfectly formed cubes with polite interest. Susan took one and bit into it carefully. "It's interesting," she said diplomatically. "Thank you for your consideration." "May I ask a personal question?" ventured Zevak after the formalities of the meeting were underway. "Of course," said Susan. "Our records indicate your shuttle was delayed by something called a thunderstorm, yet you seem unconcerned. Were you not in danger?" The humans exchanged glances, and then Joe laughed. The sound was so sudden and loud that two Zen-3 guards drew their stun weapons before realizing it was just vocalization. "Sorry," said Joe, noticing their reaction. "No, thunderstorms are pretty common on Earth, just some electricity in the clouds. Our shuttle was grounded as a precaution, that's all." "Electricity in your atmosphere? Regularly?" Kalen couldn't hide her shock. "And you consider this normal?" "Well, yeah," said Linda with a shrug. "We have all kinds of weather. Thunderstorms are actually pretty mild compared to hurricanes or tornadoes." "The translation devices must be malfunctioning," thought Zewak. "These humans couldn't possibly be casually discussing surviving regular electrical discharges from the sky. I think we're scaring them," Susan said quietly to her colleagues, though the Zen-3's sensitive hearing picked it up easily. "We don't mean to alarm you," she said more loudly. "Earth has challenging conditions compared to many worlds, but we've adapted well to them." "Perhaps," said Zevak, trying to regain his diplomatic composure, "we could continue our discussion over a tour of the ship. It might be more comfortable to walk while we talk." The humans agreed readily, seemingly unbothered by the aliens' obvious discomfort around them. As they left the conference room, Zevak sent a private message to the ship's captain. The reports weren't exaggerated. Humans are more resilient than we imagined, and they don't even realize how terrifying that is. A week had passed since the humans arrived on the Zen-3 ship. The aliens had slowly grown more accustomed to their visitors, though they still maintained a careful distance whenever possible. Today marked the beginning of the cultural exchange, portion of the diplomatic mission, something that communications specialist Linda Rodriguez had been looking forward to. The largest meeting room on the ship had been prepared with display screens and comfortable seating for both species. Linda stood at the front, her tablet connected to the main projection system. "Thank you all for joining us," she began with a warm smile. "Today I'd like to share some aspects of human culture, our art, music, literature, and entertainment." The Zen-3 watched attentively, their large eyes blinking in unison. Officer Zevak sat in the front row, genuinely curious despite his lingering fears. Linda started with simple examples of human art, paintings from various periods and styles. The aliens seemed particularly drawn to landscapes, perhaps because they showed Earth's diverse environments. "This is what we call a beach," Linda explained, showing an image of an ocean shoreline. "Many humans visit these areas for relaxation." "You relax at the border between land and acid?" asked one of the Zen-3 scientists, referring to the saltwater ocean. "It's not acid to us," Linda clarified. "Our oceans are saltwater, and we can swim in them for fun." The aliens exchanged nervous glances. The idea of voluntarily submerging oneself in a massive chemical solution seemed reckless at best. The presentation continued smoothly until Linda reached the section on entertainment. She clicked to advance to the next slide, then gasped slightly. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to include this clip." On the screen played a brief scene from a popular horror movie. A shadowy creature stalked a terrified human through a dark house. The soundtrack swelled with ominous music. Linda fumbled with her tablet. This is just fiction, a horror movie. Something humans watch for entertainment. She managed to skip past it, but the damage was done. The Zen 3 were staring at her, with expressions of complete confusion. "You create these scenarios for enjoyment?" asked Zevak, his voice higher than usual. "Yes," Linda said, embarrassed. "Some humans enjoy being scared in safe situations. It's hard to explain." Security Chief Kalen leaned toward her colleague. Their recreational activities involve simulating danger. When their actual environment is already so threatening, the aliens' reaction wasn't lost on Ambassador Susan Clark, who quickly stepped in to help. "Perhaps we should take a short break," she suggested. "Cultural differences can sometimes be overwhelming." The Zen 3 agreed immediately, seemingly relieved to have time to process what they'd just learned. Later that evening, the human crew gathered in their quarters to unwind. The day's cultural exchange had been more challenging than anticipated. "Can't believe I let that horror clip slip into the presentation," Linda said, still embarrassed. "Did you see their faces?" Lieutenant Joe Miller laughed. "To be fair, I think everything about us scares them a little. Yesterday I sneezed and 3 of them ran out of the room." "It's not funny," Susan said, though she was smiling too. "They evolved on a gentle world. We must seem like space monsters to them." Peter Moore, the science officer, was setting up a portable screen in the corner of their common room. "Speaking of space monsters, I brought along some classic sci-fi shows. Anyone want to watch?" The humans gathered around as Peter selected an episode of an old series about alien invasions. The special effects were outdated, with actors in rubber suits meant to look like menacing extraterrestrials. "This is ridiculous," Joe said, laughing at a scene where a stiff-moving alien threatened a screaming woman. "Not a single one of these aliens is even remotely similar to the Zen 3. "The physics is all wrong too," added Peter. "No spaceship could possibly move like that." The humans continued watching, occasionally bursting into laughter at the show's inaccuracies and cheesy dialogue. None of them noticed Officer Kalen passing by their open doorway. The security chief stopped, frozen in shock at what she was seeing. The humans were watching what appeared to be footage of aliens threatening their species, and they were laughing. Kalen hurried away, her heart racing. This was worse than she had imagined. The humans didn't just create entertainment about danger, they specifically enjoyed scenarios involving other species as threats. Within hours, word had spread throughout the Zen 3 ship. The command staff gathered for an emergency meeting. "They were laughing," Colin reported, her limbs trembling slightly. "Watching images of alien species hunting humans, and laughing." Captain Vrelix, the ship's commander, stroked his facial tentacles thoughtfully. "Could this be a form of psychological training, preparing themselves to face potential threats? Or perhaps," suggested Zevak, "it is a way to process their evolutionary trauma. Their planet is so dangerous, they must find ways to cope with constant threat." "Whatever the reason," said Kalen firmly, "we must increase security protocols. These humans may be more dangerous than we initially assessed." Captain Vrelix nodded gravely. "Send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them humans appear to derive pleasure from scenarios involving suffering and extinction. Request immediate guidance." Meanwhile, in the medical bay, Frank Johnson was checking supplies when he noticed the Zen 3 medical officer hurrying to leave as he entered. "Everything okay?" Frank asked casually. Yes, fine," the alien said, not meeting his eyes. "Just very busy, must go." Frank frowned as the alien scurried away. This wasn't the first time today that the Zen 3 had seemed even more nervous than usual around him. Something had changed. He found Susan in the diplomatic suite, reviewing notes from the day's meetings. "Have you noticed the aliens acting differently today?" he asked. Susan looked up. "Now that you mention it, yes. Our scheduled tour of their hydroponics bay was suddenly canceled, and my meeting with their science team was cut short. Something spooked them," Frank said, "more than our usual scary human presence." "But what?" Susan wondered. The cultural exchange seemed to be going well, apart from Linda's small slip with the horror movie clip. Frank's eyes widened with sudden understanding. That might be it. The horror movie, and... He stopped, remembering what he'd heard through the walls of their quarters the previous night. Weren't you all watching that old sci-fi show last night? The one with the aliens invading Earth? Susan's face fell as she made the connection. Oh no, you don't think they saw that and misunderstood, do you? I think we might have a serious cultural misunderstanding on our hands, Frank said gravely. Outside in the corridor, 2 Zen-3 guards watched the humans, talking, their weapons held just a little tighter than before. The situation on the Zen-3 ship had grown tense. 2 days had passed since the aliens had observed the humans laughing at what they believed were scenarios of alien threats. The Zen-3 now moved through the corridors in groups, their large eyes constantly watching the human visitors. Some crew members refused to enter rooms if humans were present. Frank Johnson had noticed the change immediately. As the medical officer, he was trained to observe behavioral shifts. He brought his concerns to Ambassador Susan Clark during their morning briefing. It's getting worse, Frank said. The Zen-3 medical staff won't work with me anymore. They send in robots instead. Susan nodded, her face serious. Lieutenant Miller reports the same from security. They've doubled the guards following our movements, but they won't get within 20 feet of us. We need to address this directly, said Linda Rodriguez. Something happened and now they're terrified of us. Susan considered their options. I've requested a meeting with Officer Zevak. If anyone will speak openly with us, it's him. The meeting was set for midday in one of the smaller conference rooms. When the humans arrived, they found Zevak waiting, but he wasn't alone. 4 security officers stood at the corners of the room, stun weapons visible on their belts. Thank you for agreeing to meet, Susan began, choosing to ignore the extra security. We've noticed a change in how your crew is interacting with us. Have we done something to cause concern? Zevak's 6 limbs fidgeted nervously. Ambassador? Clark, we value diplomatic relations, but certain observations have raised questions about human intentions. What observations? Asked Frank gently. We can't address concerns if we don't understand them. Zevak hesitated before responding. Your species' recreational activities have raised concerns. His large eyes blinked rapidly. Specifically, your enjoyment of scenarios involving alien threats and violence. Susan and Frank exchanged looks of understanding. You mean the science fiction show? Susan said. The one some of our crew was watching 2 nights ago. You were observed laughing while watching simulated attacks by other species on your kind, said Zevak. His voice trembled slightly. Combined with your enjoyment of horror scenarios, it suggests disturbing psychological patterns. Linda leaned forward. Officer Zevak, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The show you saw us watching isn't training material or even a realistic depiction. It's fiction, made-up stories for entertainment. So you've said, replied Zevak. But why would any species find enjoyment in simulated danger, especially a species that evolved on a planet with real dangers everywhere? Frank decided to try a different approach. May I ask, what kind of entertainment do the Zen-3 enjoy? The question seemed to surprise Zevak. We have music, art, mathematical puzzles. We enjoy stories about friendship, community achievements, and scientific discoveries. He paused. Nothing involving danger or suffering. Because your homeworld had few natural threats? Suggested Susan. Precisely, said Zevak. Until space exploration, our species rarely encountered life-threatening situations. We never evolved to find them entertaining. For the next 2 hours, the humans tried to explain the concept of fictional entertainment. They described how humans use stories to explore ideas, process emotions, and sometimes face fears in controlled settings. Zevak and the security team listened, their expressions moving from suspicion to confusion. Let me understand, said Zevak eventually. You create these fictional scenarios not because you enjoy actual suffering, but as a way to process your evolutionary history of constant threat. That's part of it, agreed Susan. Fiction lets us explore difficult scenarios safely. Some humans find it thrilling, others find it cathartic, but none of us want real people or aliens to suffer. And the laughter? Asked Zevak. Sometimes we laugh at how unrealistic these stories are, explained Linda. Those aliens in the show look nothing like real aliens. The spaceships move in ways that defy physics. It's silly to us because we know better. Zevak seemed to be processing this information, his facial tentacles waving thoughtfully. This is difficult to comprehend, but I believe you are sincere. Though the immediate tension eased, the meeting didn't completely resolve the misunderstanding. As the humans left, they could tell the Zen-3 still had reservations. They don't fully believe us, said Frank, as they walked back to their quarters. Can you blame them? Replied Susan. From their perspective, we're apex predators who laugh at danger. That's terrifying. We need to show them, not just tell them, said Linda. Actions speak louder than words. Their opportunity came sooner than expected. That evening, as they were discussing strategies to improve relations, the ship's alert system activated. Red lights pulsed along the corridors and a gentle but urgent chime sounded throughout the vessel. The humans rushed to the door of their quarters to find a Zen-3 crew member hurrying past. What's happening? Asked Susan. The alien hesitated, before answering. A gravity malfunction in engineering. Section 7B has lost artificial gravity. The crew member seemed reluctant to continue but added, There's been an injury. Without hesitation, Nurse Kelly Robinson grabbed her medical kit. I'm coming to help. The Zen-3 looked alarmed. It's zero gravity. You won't be able to— I grew up on a space station, Kelly interrupted. I can handle zero-G. Take me there now. The scene in engineering was chaotic by Zen-3 standards. A section of the room had no gravity, and a technician was floating near the ceiling, clearly injured and spinning slowly. Several Zen-3 crew members stood at the edge of the affected area, trying to reach their colleague with extension tools, but they were clearly uncomfortable with the gravity distortion. Kelly didn't hesitate. She handed her kit to Frank and kicked off from the doorway, launching herself smoothly into the zero-gravity area. The Zen-3 watched in amazement as she navigated the space with practiced ease, gently pushing off surfaces to adjust her trajectory. She reached the injured technician and stabilized his rotation. It's okay, she said softly. I've got you. Let me check your injuries. While floating upside down relative to the rest of the room, Kelly calmly examined the alien's injured limb. She even hummed quietly to herself as she worked, a habit she had when concentrating. The bone isn't broken, she announced, but there's a bad sprain and some tissue damage. We need to get him to the medical bay. With Frank's help, they managed to secure the technician and bring him back to the gravity-normal section of the room. The Zen-3 medical team took over, but not before staring at Kelly with new eyes. You entered zero gravity without hesitation, said one of the engineers, and you showed no signs of distress. Kelly shrugged. Like I said, I grew up in space. Gravity failures happened monthly on my station. You get used to it. As the humans returned to their quarters, they noticed the Zen-3 were looking at them differently. Not with increased fear, but with something new. It might have been respect. Later that night, Officer Zevak sent a message to Captain Vrelix. I believe we may have misunderstood the humans. Request permission to continue cultural exchange with modified approach. The incident in the zero-gravity section had changed something fundamental in the relationship between humans and Zen-3. The next morning, Officer Zevak requested another meeting with the Earth delegation, this time in the ship's observation lounge. When the humans arrived, they found not only Zevak but also Captain Vrelix waiting for them. The captain's presence was significant. Until now, the ship's commander had avoided direct contact with the humans, managing the diplomatic mission through Zevak and other officers. Ambassador Clark, the captain began, his deep voice calm but formal. I wish to personally thank Nurse Robinson for her assistance yesterday. Our technician will make a full recovery thanks to her quick action. Susan nodded respectfully. We're glad we could help, that's why we're here, to build cooperation between our species. Indeed. The captain's facial tentacles moved in what the humans had come to recognize as a thoughtful gesture. Officer Zevak has shared your explanations about human entertainment. I must admit we still find it difficult to understand. Cultural differences can be challenging, said Susan diplomatically. Which is why, continued Vrelix, I am authorizing a continuation of our cultural exchange, with modifications. We would like to better understand how humans relate to danger, not in fiction, but in reality. The observation lounge had a large viewing window that looked out into space. Earth was visible in the distance, a blue marble against the blackness. The sight of their homeworld seemed to strengthen the humans' resolve. We would be happy to explain, said Susan. Engineer Alan West, who had been relatively quiet during previous meetings, stepped forward. If I may, Captain, I think I can show you something that might help. Alan connected his tablet to the ship's display system. I'd like to show you some videos from Earth. Not fiction this time, real footage. The first images appeared on screen, a massive wave crashing against a coastline taller than the buildings nearby. This is a tsunami, explained Alan. A giant ocean wave caused by underwater earthquakes. They can destroy entire cities. The Zen 3 watched in silence as the footage showed the destructive power of the water. More images followed. Volcanoes spewing molten rock, hurricanes tearing through, towns' earthquakes toppling structures. These aren't monsters we invent, said Alan solemnly. These are real things we live with on Earth. Our planet is beautiful, but dangerous. The aliens seemed transfixed by the footage. Their homeworld had mild weather and few natural disasters. The scale of Earth's destructive forces was beyond their experience. Then Alan showed them something unexpected. Humans interacting with these forces. Storm chasers driving toward tornadoes. Volcanologists taking samples at the edge of active lava flows. Deep-sea explorers diving into crushing depths. You move toward the danger? Asked Zevak, sounding shocked. Deliberately? Some of us do, said Alan. We study these forces to better understand them. Knowledge helps us survive. Captain Vrelix's eyes hadn't left the screen. And yet you don't seem terrified. We respect the danger, explained Linda, but we've learned to live with it. Sometimes, we even appreciate the power and beauty in these forces. The room fell silent as the Zen 3 processed this information. Finally, Captain Vrelix spoke again. I believe I begin to understand. Your fiction, your horror stories, they seem mild to you because your reality contains greater challenges. That's part of it, agreed Frank. Our bodies and minds evolved to face real dangers, so we can find enjoyment in pretend dangers because they feel safe by comparison. A new understanding began to form between the species. The Zen 3 requested more information about Earth's environment and how humans had adapted to it. The humans, in turn, asked about the Zen 3 homeworld and its peaceful conditions. As the day progressed, the aliens' fear of humans gradually transformed into fascination. They began to see humanity's resilience not as something frightening, but as something remarkable, even admirable. That evening, the Zen 3 invited the humans to a special event in the ship's central garden chamber. The space had been transformed with soft lights and subtle scents. Captain Vrelix explained that this was a traditional Zen 3 gathering meant to honor respected visitors. During the event, Susan noticed something surprising. Several younger Zen 3 were gathered around Joe Miller, asking him questions about Earth. Their body language showed curiosity rather than fear. They're asking about horror movies, Joe told Susan when she approached. They want to understand why we enjoy them. And what did you tell them? Asked Susan. I told them about Halloween, how humans turn scary things into fun, how we dress up as monsters and give candy to children. Joe smiled. They think it's the strangest thing they've ever heard, but they're fascinated. Across the room, Linda was showing a group of Zen 3 scientists photos of Earth's landscapes on her tablet. Their reactions ranged from disbelief to wonder as they saw images of snow-capped mountains, vast deserts, and dense jungles. Your species evolved among such diversity, one scientist said. Perhaps this is why you adapt so readily to new situations. The atmosphere had completely changed from the tense, fearful interactions of days earlier. The Zen 3 still moved carefully around the humans, still flinched occasionally at sudden movements, but their fear was giving way to respect and curiosity. Later, that night, Captain Vrelix summoned his senior officers for a private meeting. The ship had received a response from the Galactic Council regarding their earlier warning about humans. The Council has reviewed our initial report and subsequent updates, the captain informed them. They have decided that humans represent no immediate threat to the Confederation, despite their unusual psychological profile. Security Chief Kalin, who had been the most suspicious of the humans, spoke up. I must admit, Captain, I have revised my assessment. The humans are indeed dangerous, but not in the way I first thought. Explain, prompted Vrelix. Their danger lies not in aggression but in their adaptability, said Kalin. They face conditions that would kill most species, yet they not only survive but find ways to thrive. This makes them potentially valuable allies. Zevak nodded in agreement. The Council wants us to continue diplomatic relations and prepare for possible human integration into the Confederation. And what of their entertainment? Asked another officer. Their enjoyment of fear? Captain Vrelix's facial tentacles rippled in what might have been the Zen 3 equivalent of a smile. Perhaps in time, they will teach us how to find strength in facing fears rather than avoiding them. This could be a valuable lesson for our species. As the meeting concluded, the captain looked out at the stars. Among them was the yellow sun that warmed the death world called Earth, a planet that had somehow produced beings who could laugh in the face of terror. The final days of the diplomatic mission brought a strange reversal that no one had anticipated. Rather than the humans working to calm the fears of the Zen-3, the aliens now approached them with endless questions about life on Earth. They were particularly interested in human entertainment, the very thing that had caused such alarm days earlier. Would it be possible to see more of your horror stories? Zevak asked during breakfast on the second-to-last day. With proper explanation, of course. The humans exchanged surprised glances. Susan nodded cautiously. We could arrange a movie night. Something mild, perhaps. And so that evening, the ship's lounge was transformed into a makeshift theater. Linda had selected a classic haunted house movie, scary enough to be interesting but not so terrifying that it would undo all their diplomatic progress. The Zen-3 arrived in groups, their large eyes blinking with nervous excitement. Captain Du. Vrelix himself attended, which the humans recognized as a significant gesture. Before we begin, Linda explained to the gathered aliens, remember that what you're about to see is completely fictional. The ghosts aren't real. The house isn't real. The actors are just pretending to be scared. But why? Asked a young Zen-3 scientist. Why pretend to be scared? Joe thought for a moment before answering. It's like a safe way to experience danger. The fear is real, but the danger isn't. Some humans find that exciting. As the movie played, the humans watched the aliens more than the screen. Their reactions were fascinating. Some hid their eyes during tense moments just as humans might. Others leaned forward, analyzing the scenes with scientific curiosity. A few even jumped at the sudden scares, then made the chirping sound that passed for Zen-3 laughter. When the movie ended, the room buzzed with conversation. The aliens had dozens of questions about everything from special effects to human psychology. I think I understand now, said Zevak to Susan as the crowd dispersed. Your entertainment reflects your evolutionary history. You create controlled danger because your species has always needed to understand threats to survive them. Susan nodded. That's a good way to put it. Fiction lets us explore ideas and feelings without real consequences. The next morning, the humans were invited to a formal meeting in the ship's council chamber. They found the entire Zen-3 command staff waiting, dressed in ceremonial robes. The atmosphere was solemn but not tense. Captain Vrelix stood at the center of a raised platform. Ambassador Clark, Lieutenant Miller, and all representatives of Earth, we thank you for your patience during this diplomatic mission. The captain's formal tone made the humans stand a little straighter. This was clearly an important moment. I have received a communication from the Galactic Council, Vrelix continued. After reviewing our reports and the data we have gathered, They have reached a decision regarding Earth's position in the interstellar community. The humans held their breath. This was the moment their mission had been building toward. Earth is formally invited to join the Confederation of Allied Worlds, announced the captain, his voice resonating through the chamber. Furthermore, the Council has requested that humans take on a special advisory role in matters of crisis management and survival strategies. Susan could hardly believe what she was hearing. Not only acceptance, but a special position. She stepped forward. Captain, we are honored, but may I ask why the Council has offered us this particular role? It was Zevak who answered. Your species sees the universe differently than ours. What terrifies others you face with remarkable adaptation, but more importantly, you've shown us something we never understood before. And what is that? Asked Susan. That facing fears can be a source of strength, even joy, replied Zevak. This is wisdom the Confederation needs. The farewell dinner that night was a celebratory affair. The Zenthri had prepared their finest foods, including special dishes created to suit human tastes. The two species mingled more naturally now, the initial fear replaced by mutual respect and genuine interest. During a quiet moment, Security Chief Kalin approached Frank with what appeared to be a gift, a small crystal cube that glowed with soft blue light. This is a memory stone from my homeworld, she explained. It is traditionally given to those who have taught important lessons. Frank accepted it with surprise. I'm honored, but what lesson did I teach? Kalin's facial tentacles curved upward, in the Zenthri expression of amusement. You taught me that what seems frightening at first may simply be different, and that laughter can come from understanding as well as fear. As the Earth delegation prepared to depart the next morning, Captain Vrelix had one final request. Would you be willing to share some of your entertainment with us, to help us better understand your perspective? Susan smiled. We'd be happy to, and perhaps you could share some of your stories with us as well. An exchange of fears and comforts, said the captain thoughtfully. Yes, I believe that would be most educational for both our peoples. The human transport vessel was loaded with diplomatic documents, cultural artifacts, and at the Zenthri's specific request, a collection of classic human horror and science fiction stories. The aliens were particularly interested in tales about first contact between species, stories that often portrayed misunderstandings similar to their own experience. As the airlock doors closed and the humans prepared to return to Earth, Linda turned to Susan with a smile. Who would have thought our scary movies would end up being our best diplomatic tool? It makes sense when you think about it, replied Susan. They showed the Zenthri something important about humanity, that we can look at the darkness of the universe and respond with a chuckle rather than a scream. The journey back to Earth gave the delegation time to prepare their report. They needed to explain not only the diplomatic success, but also the unique position humans would hold in the Confederation. How could they convey that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or even their adaptability, but their psychological resilience, their ability to transform fear into entertainment? Lieutenant Joe Miller summed it up best in the final line of their report. The Zenthri and other Confederation species haven't evolved on death worlds like ours. They never needed to develop the human capacity to laugh in the face of danger. Perhaps that is what we have to offer the galaxy. Not just our strength or our science, but our smile in the dark. As Earth grew larger in the view screen, the humans looked at their home with new eyes. The storms, the quakes, the endless challenges that had shaped their species. These weren't curses, but gifts that had prepared humanity for the stars. Their world had made them strong in ways they had never fully appreciated until they saw themselves through alien eyes. And somewhere in the vastness of space, a ship full of Zenthri were gathering to watch their first zombie movie, nervous but excited, to understand what made the Deathworlders chuckle.